Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Ariana. The ballroom shines like a glass cathedral, crystal chandeliers scattering light over marble floors, tuxedos and satin drifting between round tables dressed in gold and linen. A string quartet keeps the night polished, gentle, controlled. Then a voice rips straight through it. He chose me, not you. Conversations collapse. Forks pause mid-air. Heads turn as if pulled by a wire. Vivian Hart stands in a white satin gown, blonde curls bouncing with her fury. Diamonds flash at her throat. She's smiling, but it's the kind of smile meant to wound. Across the open floor, Ariana Cole stands in a deep emerald dress, one hand resting over her pregnant belly like a shield. She doesn't look surprised. She looks prepared. Like someone who expected the world to test her in public. Between them is Grant Whitmore, black tux, perfect posture, the billionaire everyone came to impress. His expression stays neutral, almost bored, as if this scene is simply another transaction. Vivian stalks closer, her heels clicking like punctuation. "Look at you," she says loudly. "Still pretending you belong here." Ariana doesn't flinch. She doesn't argue. She doesn't plead. Her eyes stay level, steady, refusing to shrink. Phones rise around the room, screens glowing, hungry for a tearful moment. For proof. For spectacle. Grant finally speaks, not to the woman humiliating his wife, but to the nearest guard. "Escort Ariana out," he says, clipped and cold. "Now." A ripple runs through the crowd, shock dressed up as curiosity. A few guests lean forward like they paid for the seat. Vivian's mouth curls in triumph. She lifts a champagne flute and steps in close, invading Ariana's space with practiced cruelty. "You heard him," she whispers, still loud enough for the first row of witnesses. "Don't make it messy." And then she makes it messy, carefully. Her wrist tilts, just enough. Champagne slides out in a glittering stream and splashes across Ariana's dress, cold and bright against the green fabric. Gasps pop around the room. Ariana inhales sharply, more from the insult than the spill. Vivian stumbles, and her stiletto catches the hem of Ariana's gown for half a second, just long enough to tug her off balance. Ariana's body reacts on instinct. One step back, palm pressing protectively to her stomach, the other hand searching for the air. The quartet falters. A violin squeaks. The room holds its breath. Ariana steadies herself without a sound. No tears. No panic. Just a slow exhale, like she's refusing to give them anything they can chew. Grant's eyes flicker, not with concern, but with calculation. He's watching the room watch him. The guard steps forward, arm out, ready to remove Ariana as ordered. Vivian's face says she's already won. Ariana lifts her chin, gaze cutting past them all. Calm hands. Controlled breathing. She reaches into her clutch and pulls out her phone. The screen lights her face for a brief moment, cool, unreadable. One message waits at the top. "We just landed." The message sat on Ariana's screen like a sealed envelope. "We just landed." She didn't smile. She didn't react in a way the room could consume. She simply locked her phone, slid it back into her clutch, and lifted her eyes to the guard's outstretched arm. The guard hesitated only for a heartbeat. He'd been trained to move people, not to read the temperature of power. But something in Ariana's stillness made his hand hover instead of clamp. Grant didn't notice the hesitation. Or he pretended not to. "Now," he repeated, voice low but sharp, like a blade kept polite for public use. "Please." The word please sounded like an insult dressed as manners. Vivian stepped to the side, giving Ariana a clear path toward the exit like a queen granting mercy. She held her champagne flute as if it were a trophy and glanced at the nearest phones. "Make sure you get her good side," she said, loud enough to land in every recording. Ariana turned slightly, just enough to face the room. Her emerald dress clung damply where the champagne had soaked it. She smoothed the fabric with one hand, slow, deliberate, then rested her palm over her belly again, grounding herself. It wasn't fear in her posture. It was restraint. A woman at a nearby table whispered, "She's really just going to leave?" A man replied under his breath, "What choice does she have?" That assumption moved through the ballroom like perfume, soft, invisible, suffocating. The guard finally stepped in, gentle but firm, trying to steer Ariana by the elbow. His fingers barely made contact before Ariana shifted her arm away. No aggression, no flinch, just a clean refusal. "I can walk," she said quietly. Not loud. Not dramatic. But close enough that the guard heard her. Close enough that he nodded like he'd just been given an order he was relieved to follow. Grant's jaw tightened. He watched her claim that small piece of control, and for a split second, the mask slipped. His eyes weren't triumphant. They were nervous. Vivian caught it, too. She leaned toward Grant, smiling as if she owned the moment. "See," she murmured. "It's done." Grant didn't answer. He kept his gaze on Ariana as she began to move. The marble floor was slick in places where champagne had splashed. Chairs scraped subtly as people shifted to make room, careful not to be seen helping her. Ariana walked anyway, measured steps, shoulders squared, head high, through a corridor of stairs. Phones followed her like spotlights. Someone laughed too loudly from the back, then stopped when no one joined in. Ariana didn't look at them. She looked past them. At the exit. At the night beyond the ballroom. At the part of the world where decisions were made without applause. A hotel staffer rushed forward with a linen napkin, hovering like he wanted to blot the stain from her dress, from the story, from the room's conscience. Ariana gave him a small shake of her head. "No," she said, calm as a closing door. "Leave it." Vivian's brows lifted. "Oh, how noble," she called after her. "Let everyone see what you are." Ariana stopped. Just stopped. The entire ballroom felt it, like a pause in breathing. Even the quartet quieted, bows suspended, waiting to see whether the pregnant woman would finally break. Ariana turned her head slightly, not fully, not theatrically. She didn't give Vivian the satisfaction of full attention. "What I am," Ariana said, voice steady, "is not yours to name." It wasn't a threat. It was a boundary. Vivian's smile faltered for the first time. "Excuse me?" Grant stepped forward, impatient, eager to regain control. "Ariana," he hissed. "Don't do this." Ariana faced him then, fully. Her eyes met his the way a judge meets a witness who's been lying too long. "You already did," she replied. Grant opened his mouth, ready with excuses polished over months, maybe years, but no sound came out. The room watched him fail to form a sentence, watched him stand there in perfect tailoring with nothing inside it but ego. Then an earpiece crackled. Not in Ariana's ear. In the hotel manager's. The manager, who had been hovering near the wall like background furniture, straightened as if pulled upright by an invisible string. His face shifted, professional calm replaced by something closer to alarm. He moved quickly to Grant, leaning in with urgent discretion. "Mr. Whitmore," he whispered, "your guests have arrived." Grant blinked. "What guests?" The manager swallowed. "The Cole party." Ariana didn't react. She didn't need to. Because at that exact moment, the massive ballroom doors, tall as a courtroom entrance, swung open. A cold draft rolled in from the corridor, carrying the faint scent of jet fuel and rain. And three silhouettes stepped into the light. The chandeliers didn't dim, but the room did. Three men stepped through the ballroom doors as if the air belonged to them, tall, composed, dressed in dark tailored suits that didn't try to impress anyone. They didn't scan for approval. They scanned for Ariana. Behind them, two hotel security supervisors appeared, not leading, not blocking, simply trailing, like staff who already knew the protocol. The crowd shifted instinctively, making space the way crowds do when they sense real authority, the kind that doesn't need to shout. Phones lowered. Whispers tightened into silence. Vivian's lips parted, confusion cracking her confidence. "Who are they?" she whispered, but no one answered her fast enough. Grant's face drained a shade lighter beneath the warm ballroom lights. His eyes flicked to the manager, then back to the men, trying to calculate which problem had just walked in wearing shoes that didn't squeak on marble. Ariana watched them approach without moving. Her shoulders finally loosened just slightly, as if a weight she'd been holding alone had been redistributed. The oldest brother reached her first. Marcus Cole. His hair was cropped close, jaw clean, expression steady. He didn't touch Ariana at first. He simply looked at the damp stain on her dress. Then he looked at her belly. Then he looked at Grant. The middle brother, Darius, had the quiet menace of a man who didn't threaten twice. He took one step to the side, subtle, practiced, placing himself between Ariana and the room, not as a shield of fear, but as a boundary made human. The youngest, Elijah, didn't look angry. That was the most unsettling part. He looked disappointed. Like he'd expected better from a room full of adults in expensive clothing. Marcus finally spoke, voice low, calm, razor clean. "You okay?" Ariana nodded once. "I'm fine." Marcus's eyes didn't leave Grant. "Are you?" Grant tried to stand taller. "This is a private event." Darius's gaze drifted past him, taking in the stage, the sponsor banners, the donors, the cameras, like he was reading the room's balance sheet. "Not private enough," he said. Vivian found her voice again, sharp with entitlement. "Excuse me, security, who let them in? This is between Grant and his wife." Elijah's eyes flicked to her, then away, as if she wasn't worth the focus. "You're not part of this," he said quietly. Vivian bristled. "I'm not?" She laughed, high and forced. "Do you even know who he is?" Marcus answered without looking at her. "We do." That single sentence landed heavier than any name-dropping. For a moment, Ariana's mind pulled back, not in panic, but in clarity. She remembered the first time Grant called her grounding. The way he held her hand at charity dinners like she was proof he was stable. The way he praised her humility whenever she avoided interviews. The way he started getting anxious the moment she stopped signing things without reading them. Grant didn't marry Ariana for her spotlight. He married her for her silence. Because Ariana Cole hadn't been lucky to be invited into his world. She'd been protecting his. The Cole name wasn't gossip column famous. It was boardroom famous. The kind of family that didn't chase headlines because they owned the paper mills that printed them. The kind that invested quietly, bought quietly, exited quietly, and left people thinking success was magic instead of structure. Grant's empire had been bleeding for months. Not in public. Not on magazine covers. But in the places that matter, credit lines tightening, partners stalling, delays that sounded temporary until they weren't. He'd needed tonight's gala to lock in a deal that would keep him afloat. And he'd assumed Ariana would keep playing the role, gracious, forgiving, invisible. Marcus took a small card from his inner pocket and held it out, not to Grant, but to the hotel manager. The manager's hands trembled as he read it. His face changed instantly, like someone had just remembered who signed the building's lease. "Yes, sir," the manager said, voice suddenly too respectful. "Of course. Right away." Grant's throat bobbed. "What is this?" Darius finally looked at him directly. "It's the part where you stop talking like you're in charge." Vivian's confidence wavered, her eyes darting between the brothers and Grant, trying to find the man she thought she was winning. Grant swallowed hard. "Ariana, what did you do?" Ariana's voice was soft. Controlled. Almost kind. "I didn't do anything," she said. "I stopped preventing consequences." Marcus stepped closer to Grant, close enough that Grant had to tilt his head up. "We landed 10 minutes ago," Marcus said. "And we came straight here." He paused, eyes cold, voice even. "Now," he added, "tell me why my sister is being escorted out of a room she helped pay for." Grant didn't answer Marcus right away. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again like a man searching for the correct tone to use on someone he'd assumed would never challenge him. "Ariana is my wife," he finally said, forcing steadiness. "This is a misunderstanding. She's emotional. She needs air." A few guests nodded as if they'd been handed a script they recognized. Marcus didn't blink. Emotional doesn't explain the stain on her dress. Vivian lifted her chin, stepping forward with the confidence of someone who believed the room would protect her. "It was an accident," she said quickly. "And honestly, she's causing a scene." Elijah's gaze slid to Vivian again, calm and cutting. "You're the only one raising your voice." Vivian's face flushed. "Excuse me?" Darius shifted one half step, barely anything, but enough to redraw the map of the space. Vivian found herself speaking to a wall she couldn't move. Grant's eyes flicked around the ballroom, searching for allies. Board members. Donors. People who owed him favors. But in the presence of the Cole brothers, those same allies suddenly looked fascinated by their napkins. The hotel manager returned, posture rigid, hands clasped like prayer. He leaned toward Marcus, voice hushed. "Mr. Cole, we can clear the ballroom immediately if you wish." Grant stiffened. "Clear the? What are you talking about?" The manager glanced at Grant with the careful neutrality of someone who didn't want to offend the wrong person. "Sir, the principal reservation and underwriting for tonight's event is under Cole Meridian Holdings." A small sound went through the room, part gasp, part swallow. Grant's face tightened like a tie pulled too hard. "That's impossible. My foundation." "Yes," the manager said, carefully. "Your foundation is the host. Cole Meridian is the principal underwriter. That was finalized weeks ago." Grant turned sharply to Ariana, voice dropping. "Ariana, why didn't you tell me?" Ariana held his gaze, unflinching. "You never asked who kept saying yes after you started hearing no." The words didn't shout. They didn't have to. They landed with the clean weight of truth. Vivian's laugh came out thin. This is ridiculous. He's Grant Whitmore. Everyone knows Grant. Elijah finally looked at her fully, expression flat. Everyone knows the face, he said. Not everyone knows the wiring behind it. Grant tried to regain control by narrowing the moment, by making it personal again. He stepped toward Ariana, lowering his voice like a husband trying to sound concerned instead of cornered. Please, he murmured. Not here. Not tonight. Ariana's eyes softened for a fraction, not for him, but for the baby under her hand. Then the softness vanished. Tonight is exactly why, she said. Grant swallowed. You don't understand what's at stake. Darius's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. We understand, he said. That's why we flew in. The truth was, Ariana had understood long before any of them landed. Earlier that afternoon, in a private suite upstairs, Grant had handed her a folder with a practiced grin. A small amendment, he'd called it. A signature to streamline a donation structure. He'd kissed her temple while explaining it, as if affection could cover the smell of urgency. Ariana had read every page. The amendment didn't streamline anything. It transferred control. It positioned Ariana's money, her family's money, as collateral for his next expansion. It put her name on the risk and his name on the applause. When she'd looked up, Grant's smile had already started to crack. Just sign, he'd said gently, as if speaking to a child. It's routine. Ariana had placed the pen down. Not like this. Grant's jaw had tightened. Ariana, don't make this difficult. And that was the moment she'd realized, he wasn't afraid of losing her love. He was afraid of losing her leverage. Back in the ballroom, Marcus watched Grant's face and seemed to read the whole story without needing the folder. So, Marcus said evenly, you humiliated my pregnant sister in a room her family underwrote, to protect what, exactly? Grant's voice rose, sharp with panic masked as authority. This is my event. My donors. My. The ballroom lights flickered once. Not a power outage, something intentional. A technician at the back glanced down at a tablet, startled. On the stage, the MC, who had been waiting with a microphone and a practiced smile, received a new note from a trembling assistant. His smile wavered as he read it. He cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC announced, voice suddenly careful, we have an update to tonight's program. Grant froze. Ariana didn't. The MC looked out over the room, and for the first time all night, his eyes found Ariana like she was the only person who mattered. It is my honor, he said, to recognize tonight's principal sponsor. Behind him, the massive screen on stage glowed, then shifted. A new name appeared in bright, unmistakable letters. And Grant Whitmore's world began to tip. The ballroom screen burned bright behind the MC, the new letters crisp enough to silence even the drunkest laugh. Cole Meridian Holdings, principal sponsor. Authorized representative, Ariana Cole. Grant Whitmore didn't blink. He couldn't. His face held the stunned stiffness of a man watching the floor drop out beneath him, quietly, in front of everyone who'd ever applauded his name. A ripple moved through the crowd, chairs shifting, mouths tightening, eyes recalculating. The donors who'd been smiling at Grant minutes ago suddenly looked like they'd forgotten his last name. Vivian's expression cracked first. That's, she started, then forced a laugh that came out sharp and wrong. That's not real. That's some charity paperwork. Grant, tell them. Grant didn't speak. His tongue seemed to have turned to stone. Ariana stood still, one hand over her belly, the other resting lightly against her clutch. Champagne stained her dress, but the stain looked smaller now, like proof of someone else's desperation, not her weakness. The MC swallowed, eyes flicking toward the hotel manager, then back to Ariana. His voice softened into respect. "Miss Cole," he said, "we apologize for the confusion. Would you?" Vivian lunged toward the stage steps, as if volume could erase facts. "No. No, you don't get to." She was being escorted out. He said. Darius moved without drama, stepping into Vivian's path. Not a shove. Not a threat. Just presence, final and unmovable. She stopped short, heels squeaking on marble. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "you've done enough." Vivian's eyes flared. "Who do you think you are?" Elijah answered like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Family." That word turned the room colder. And in that cold, the night rewound fast, clean, cinematic. Rain on runway lights. A private jet the color of midnight settling onto the tarmac like it owned the sky. The fuselage gleamed under floodlights, and on the tail, a discreet emblem that meant nothing to strangers and everything to people who understood balance sheets. The stairs dropped. The door opened. Marcus stepped out first, coat collar raised against the wind. Darius followed, scanning without urgency. Elijah last, hands in his pockets, calm as if landing in a storm was routine. A black car convoy waited at the edge of the runway, engines already running. No shouting. No fanfare. Just a silent chain of coordination that said, "This isn't a visit, this is an intervention." Then the memory snapped back to the ballroom. Marcus faced Grant, voice low enough that it felt private, even with 100 people listening. "You built your status on her silence," Marcus said. "And tonight you tried to escort her out like she was disposable." Grant's lips parted, searching for an explanation that wouldn't incriminate him. This isn't Ariana, please." Ariana finally spoke, soft and steady, the sound of a door locking. "You wanted me small," she said. "So you could feel big." Vivian shook her head, frantic now. "Grant, say something." Grant still didn't move. Because for the first time in that glittering room, Ariana wasn't the one being removed. Grant was. Grant took a step toward Ariana, palms half raised, as if he could rewind the last 5 minutes with body language alone. "Ariana," he said, voice tight, "we can talk upstairs." "We don't have to." "We do," Marcus cut in, calm as stone. Grant's gaze darted to the crowd, faces he'd once controlled with a smile. Now they watched him the way investors watch a chart begin to fall. Quiet. Interested. Unforgiving. Vivian clutched his arm like an anchor. "Grant," she whispered urgently, nails digging into his sleeve, "tell them this is a mistake. Tell them she's bluffing." Grant didn't shake her off. He didn't comfort her either. He just stared at Ariana as if seeing her for the first time, like the woman he'd married had been a silhouette until the lights hit her name. Ariana's hand rested over her belly. Her other hand lifted her phone again. Not for drama. Not for proof. For action. She tapped once, then brought it to her ear. The ballroom held its breath, because everyone understood one thing: a woman who stays quiet this long isn't quiet because she's powerless. She's quiet because she's deciding. When she spoke, it wasn't loud enough for the whole room, only for the people closest to her to hear. "Hi," Ariana said, voice even. "It's me." A pause. The faintest shift in her expression, acknowledgement, confirmation. "Proceed," she said. "Activate the cancellation protocol. Effective immediately." Grant's face changed. Fast. "No, Ariana, wait. What are you doing?" Ariana lowered the phone slightly and looked at him without heat. Without hatred. "Ending the arrangement," she said. Grant's breath hitched. "This will hurt the foundation. The donors, this is bigger than us." Ariana's eyes flicked to the screen still glowing behind the MC, her name, her company, her authority. "It was always bigger than you," she replied. She turned her head back to the call. "Yes. All of it," she said. "Freeze the underwriting. Suspend disbursements. Notify counsel. And send the revised program to the venue." She ended the call and slid the phone back into her clutch like she'd just signed something invisible. For one beat, nothing happened. Then the room started to vibrate. Not with music, with phones. A soft chorus of buzzes and chimes spread table to table. Donors glanced down at screens. Brows furrowed. A man near the front whispered, "What does funding withdrawn mean?" Another guest swallowed hard, already typing. The hotel manager's device pinged. His posture snapped straighter, like he'd been given a new chain of command. "Yes, Miss Cole," he murmured reflexively, then stopped, realizing he'd said it out loud. Grant heard it. His pride flared, desperate. "Don't call her," he started, then faltered as Marcus stepped closer. "You'll address her properly," Marcus said. No threat in it. Just finality. Vivian's composure finally broke into something raw. "You can't do this," she snapped at Ariana, voice shrill now. "You're just trying to embarrass him." Ariana didn't look at her. "I'm correcting a mistake," she said, and the simplicity of it made Vivian's anger sound childish. Grant's voice dropped, urgent. "Ariana, please. Whatever you think you know, we can fix it. We can." Ariana's gaze held him in place. "You had every chance to be decent before you knew who I was," she said quietly. "You chose not to." And that, more than the money, more than the screen, was what made Grant look small. The ballroom doors opened again. Not for the brothers this time. For a team in dark suits carrying slim folders and tablets, moving with the speed of people who already have signatures waiting. They didn't scan for Grant. They walked straight to Ariana. The woman at the front of the group stopped at a respectful distance and nodded. "Ms. Cole," she said. "Counsel is here. And the first notices have been sent." The lead attorney didn't walk in like she needed permission. Charcoal suit. Hair pulled back. A calm face that didn't bargain with power, only documented it. Two associates flanked her with tablets and slim folders, moving with the quiet efficiency of people who'd been on standby long before the ballroom doors opened. She stopped at a respectful distance from Ariana and nodded. "Miss Cole," she said, voice low and precise. "We received your message. We're here." Grant snapped toward them, panic sharpening into indignation. "Who are you? What is this?" The attorney didn't look at him at first. She addressed Ariana, because that was the chain of command. "Underwriting suspension notices have been issued," she said. "Venue, vendors, and the foundation's payment administrator have been notified. Any further charges are on hold pending your authorization. We have confirmations coming in now." Ariana's expression didn't change. Only her breathing did, a slow, controlled. "Good." Grant took a half step forward as if his body could reclaim authority faster than paperwork could erase it. "You can't just freeze things because you're upset. This is a gala. People donated. There are commitments." The attorney finally turned her head toward him, eyes cool. "Commitments are governed by terms," she said. And the terms allow the principal sponsor to suspend disbursement when material misrepresentation or reputational harm is involved. Grant's jaw tightened. I'm her husband. In this matter, the attorney replied, you are not her representative. That line did what no insult ever could. It stripped Grant of the only costume he'd been wearing all night: control. Around the room, phones buzzed again, sharper now. Not melodramatic reversals, but the kind of alerts wealthy people recognize immediately. Payment paused. Approval required. Account review. The donors who'd been sipping champagne a moment ago stared down at their screens as if the words might change if they blinked hard enough. A man in a navy blazer murmured, my assistant just texted, our pledge processing is flagged. A woman in pearls whispered, why is the vendor invoice on hold? The hotel manager hovered near Ariana, sweating through professionalism. Miss Cole, he asked softly, how would you like us to proceed with the program? Ariana looked across the ballroom, across the faces that had watched her be escorted, watched her dress get stained, watched her dignity treated like entertainment. Pause it, she said. The manager turned instantly. The MC lowered his microphone. The quartet, mid-bow, fell silent. The room went so quiet it could hear itself thinking. Grant's voice rose, cracking at the edges. Ariana, this will damage the foundation. Ariana met his eyes without heat. You damaged it, she said. I'm preventing it from using me as a shield. One of the associates stepped forward and handed the hotel manager a single-page letter. The manager read the header, and his posture changed, like someone suddenly remembered who owned the oxygen. Yes, Ms. Cole, he said quickly. Understood. Grant reached for the page. Let me see that. Darius didn't touch him. He simply stepped into the space between Grant and the paper, and the message was clear, you don't take what isn't yours anymore. Vivian, still rattled from being cut off at every turn, tried to claw the moment back with volume. This is insane, she snapped. All this over a spilled drink? Elijah turned his head slowly, as if the question exhausted him. It wasn't the drink, he said. It was the intent. Vivian scoffed, too loud, too late. You can't prove intent. The attorney's eyes shifted, not to Vivian, but to the head of hotel security. Actually, she said, we can preserve evidence. The head of security straightened. Yes, ma'am. We're requesting immediate preservation of all surveillance footage, the attorney continued. Ballroom angles, corridor angles, and any body cam footage from staff. Time window, 1 hour before and after the incident. Vivian's face twitched. Incident? Ariana's hand slid over her belly again, protective, grounded. The attorney spoke with the calm of procedure. Harassment and physical interference, she said. And for clarity, witnesses will be identified and statements can be taken if Ms. Cole chooses. A hush tightened the air. In that silence, Vivian's confidence finally found its limit. 2 uniformed guards approached her, not aggressive, just inevitable. Miss Hart, one said politely, we need you to step out with us. Vivian jerked back, eyes wild, searching for Grant like a lifeboat. Grant, she cried. Do something. Grant didn't move. He couldn't decide whether to save her or save himself, and that hesitation told the whole room what his loyalty was really worth. Vivian's voice climbed into panic as the guards guided her away. You can't do this to me. Ariana didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. She simply stood still, centered, her composure making the chaos look childish. Then the attorney's tablet chimed softly. She glanced down, read, and lifted her eyes back to Ariana. Ms. Cole, she said, lowering her voice, the lenders responded. They've acknowledged the underwriting suspension and initiated an expedited review. Grant went pale. What does that mean? The attorney held Ariana's gaze. It means, she said, they're asking whether you want to authorize a demand notice and begin acceleration proceedings tonight. The attorney's question hung in the air like a verdict waiting for a signature. Call the note, tonight? Grant repeated, voice cracking on the last word. His billionaire polish couldn't hide the panic underneath. You can't be serious. Around him, the ballroom shifted again, subtle, predatory. People who'd once leaned toward him now leaned away, as if failure were contagious. Ariana didn't answer immediately. She looked past Grant at the donors, the board members, the socialites, faces that had watched her get escorted, watched champagne soak her dress, watched a woman try to turn cruelty into entertainment. Now those faces were rearranging themselves into innocence. A man who'd laughed earlier cleared his throat and stared at the floor. A woman who'd filmed with her phone lowered it slowly, thumb hovering over the delete button. Someone whispered, "Is this going to be on the news?" as if the real tragedy was exposure. Vivian's voice echoed from the corridor, shrill, breaking until the doors shut and her sound was cut off like a mic being muted. The silence that followed didn't feel peaceful. It felt expensive. Grant stepped closer to Ariana, lowering his voice as if privacy could still exist in a room full of witnesses. "Ariana, please," he said. "We have a child. You're going to ruin everything." Ariana's eyes stayed steady. "Everything?" she repeated softly. "Or your image?" Grant flinched. "I made a mistake." Elijah's gaze sharpened. "You made a choice," he corrected. Grant swallowed and tried a different angle, the one that usually worked, control dressed as concern. "You're emotional right now. You've been humiliated. Let's go upstairs, Anne." "Don't," Ariana cut in, calm but final. One word, and the room felt it. The attorney waited, respectful, holding her phone with the lender's message still open. The hotel manager stood a few feet away, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were pale. The MC hovered near the stage, unsure whether to breathe. Ariana looked at Grant one last time, not with hatred, not with triumph. With clarity. "You didn't protect me," she said quietly. "Not as your wife. Not as the mother of your child. Not as a human being in front of a room full of strangers." Grant's lips trembled. "I." "And you didn't need to know my title to do the right thing," Ariana continued. "You just needed character." That word, character, hit harder than any legal notice. Grant's eyes darted to the donors as if someone might rescue him with applause. No one moved. They were all busy deciding which side of the story they would claim to have been on. A board member approached hesitantly, smiling too wide. "Miss Cole," he began, voice syrupy, "I had no idea. If there's anything we can do to support you." Marcus turned his head slightly. Not a glare. Just attention. The man stopped talking mid-sentence, as if his own courage had been unplugged. Ariana didn't look at him. She looked at the stage. "Turn the microphone back on," she told the manager. The manager nearly stumbled, rushing to comply. The MC's mic clicked. A soft feedback hum rolled through the ballroom like a warning. Ariana walked, measured steps, hand over her belly, toward the center of the room. Not to perform. To correct the record. She took the microphone from the MC without ceremony and faced the crowd. "I won't be staying," she said, voice even, carrying without strain. "But I want this to be clear." The room held still. "Tonight's funding is withdrawn," she continued. "Not out of spite. Out of principle. Because no cause is righteous if it's built on humiliation. A few people blinked fast, as if tears might appear to prove they weren't part of the problem. Ariana paused, then added, quieter, but somehow louder in effect, and the support will be redirected. Grant's head snapped up. Ariana. She didn't look at him. It will go to maternal health clinics, she said, and legal aid for women who are forced to beg for dignity in public. A murmur rolled through the crowd, half approval, half fear. Ariana handed the mic back, and only then did she turn to her attorney. Call it, Ariana said simply. Grant went pale. No, Ariana, don't please. The attorney nodded once, thumb already moving. And as she placed the call, Grant Whitmore finally understood what true power sounded like. Not a shout. A quiet decision. The attorney didn't raise her voice. She didn't need a stage. She stepped a few feet away from the crowd, phone to her ear, and spoke in a tone meant for conference rooms, not ballrooms. Ariana watched her lips move, short phrases, precise language, while Grant stood frozen, as if the air had turned to glass around him. Then the attorney ended the call and returned. It's done, she said quietly. The note is called. Formal notice is being delivered electronically and by courier. The lenders want a meeting at 8 a.m. Grant's mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. When it finally did, it wasn't the voice of a billionaire. It was the voice of a man realizing the world doesn't forgive arrogance just because it wears silk. You're really doing this, he rasped. Ariana's hand rested over her belly, fingers spread as if she could feel the baby's heartbeat through fabric in consequence. Her eyes didn't shine with victory. They shone with certainty. I'm not doing anything to you, she said. I'm stopping you from doing it to me. Behind them, the room unraveled in quiet, human ways. Board members checked their phones and stopped breathing for a second. Donors whispered numbers that sounded like prayers. A woman who'd filmed the humiliation earlier stared at her screen, then slowly lowered it, as if she'd just realized she'd recorded her own complicity. The hotel manager approached Ariana, face tight with professional fear. Miss Cole, he said, we'll have a car ready for you at the private entrance. Ariana nodded once. Thank you. Grant lunged for one last attempt, softening his tone, reaching for the memory of who she used to be beside him. Ariana, please, he said. We can fix this. We can go home. We can. Marcus stepped between them, not touching Grant, just ending the conversation with presence. Ariana didn't look away from Grant. Home, she repeated, voice low. A home is where you're safe. I wasn't safe with you. Grant's eyes darted to the crowd again, desperate for someone to say this had gone too far. But the crowd had already chosen its survival. They were no longer watching Ariana to see if she would break. They were watching Grant to see if he would fall. Down the corridor, Vivian's protest had turned into pleading. Then into silence. Later, there would be paperwork, trespass orders, a formal complaint, witness statements, surveillance footage preserved with a timestamp that couldn't be argued with. She would learn what arrogance always learns too late: the world is loud when you're winning and brutally quiet when you're wrong. Grant tried to follow Ariana, but the attorney's associate stepped into his path with a tablet held like a shield. Mr. Whitmore, the associate said, calm and clinical, you've been advised to direct all communication through counsel. Grant's shoulders sagged, the tux suddenly looking like a costume on a man who'd forgotten his lines. Ariana turned away first. Not because she couldn't look at him. Because she could, and she didn't need to anymore. The Cole brothers walked with her toward the private exit, their formation unspoken, Marcus slightly ahead, Darius to her side, Elijah behind. Not guards. Family. A boundary built from love instead of fear. Outside, the night air was cold and clean. The car door opened. Ariana paused before getting in, looking back once not at the ballroom, but at the building itself. A place full of light that had tried to make her small. It hadn't worked. She slid into the car, one hand still over her belly, and the door closed with a soft, final sound. The car pulled away. Inside the ballroom, Grant Whitmore stood under chandeliers that no longer felt like stars. He was still surrounded by people. But for the first time in his life, he was alone. And far from the gala, Ariana's phone lit with a new message from her attorney. Clinic partners confirmed, legal aid board established, funds rerouted by morning. Ariana exhaled, slow and steady, and stared out at the city lights. Justice didn't need to scream. It only needed someone brave enough to stop absorbing the damage in silence.